We're going to begin this Hello World tutorial with a brief overview of the different files that you're going to be using within Xcode. You're going to use three files in particular: the view controller header file, the view controller implementation file, and the view controller nib file. Notice the different extensions: H for header, M for implementation, and XIB for nib. Now there's a history behind that. It used to be NIB, which is where we get the pronunciation nib from, obviously, but it's been changed in the later version of Xcode, but we can still call it a nib file. And as you can see here, the nib file represents our user interface. That's where we're actually going to construct our Hello World program in terms of what the user sees. The header and implementation files are the files that are going to contain some code. In the header file, we're going to basically set up the fact that we've got a label and a button ready to be used, and then in the implementation file, we're actually going to use the button and label. So what we want to do is open up Xcode. This is our welcome screen. Click Create a new Xcode project. And for this example, choose Single View Application, then Next. Product name, I'm going to call it Hello World. Company identifier can be anything, just write your name for this stage. And make sure that the device family says iPhone. Press Next and choose where you want to save it. If you've done things correctly in Xcode 4.2.1, I think it is, yep, version 4.2.1, just downloaded a week ago. This is the screen you'll come to. Over here we've got the project navigator. If you don't see all your files here, could be two reasons. Either your Hello World project folder wasn't expanded, or you've got one of these other options selected instead. Make sure that the far left hand one, project navigator that looks like a folder, is selected. Now over here in our Hello World project folder, we can see a number of files, including those three files that I talked about earlier: the view controller header file, the view controller implementation file, and the view controller nib file. And notice when I click each of those, something different appears towards the right hand side of our screen. Here I've got the nib file selected, and here's our template for the iPhone screen. Now what we need to do is make sure that over here on the right hand side we've got a controls and properties panel showing. If you don't have that, go up here to the view panel, view group, and make sure that the right hand panel is selected. Now what we're going to do for this project is have a label and a button. So click and drag a label across. You can see you've got these grid lines to help you center things. Just going to make that the full width of the screen as well, and then change some properties. Make it centered. Let's increase the size of the font a bit, and I'm going to make this font white in colour. I'm also going to get rid of any existing text to begin with. Press Enter to apply, because I only want text to appear when we click a button. Next thing is to drag a button. I'm going to center this dead middle of the screen. Notice the double crosshairs to tell me that. Might as well make this full width of the screen as well, just because I can. I'm going to type some text on top of the button. Press Enter to apply. And just to make it look pretty, I'm going to click the grey background and change it from that rather dull looking grey to red. Now I've finished with the properties, so I'm just going to toggle that off and open up the assistant editor. This is this middle icon. And this way we can see our screen is divided into thirds. We've still got the project navigator on the left, so we can easily click between each of our 3 files, but we can see 2 files at any one time. Our nib file in the middle here, and by default the assistant editor has opened up the header file. Now the header file is where we're going to tell Xcode, hey, we've got a button and we've got a label that could be used in this project. So after this line here, I'm going to put an opening curly brace, hover over until you get your hand, there we go. Now pressing Control, click and drag, and then let go once you're inside the curly brace. Now its connection must be set to outlet. Think of this as another way of saying output. The purpose of our label is to output or display some text. So that's what outlet is doing. The name, I'm just going to call it label for now. I'm only using one, and then press connect. So this line here has told Xcode there's a label that could be used in the implementation file. But other than that, it's not doing anything at this stage. Then we're going to press Control and drag across from the button, but this time make sure you let go after the closing curly brace. There's 2 things we've got to do here. We'll give it a name as well. Let's go for button for now. We must change the connection. It's not an outlet, it performs some kind of action. So press connect. And a slightly different line appears, but its function is the same, and the essence of, like the label line, it said, hey Xcode, there's a button here, you can use it if you want. Now we want to go over to the implementation file, scroll right down to the bottom here, don't delete any of this though, and here we've got a similar looking line, IB action button, ID sender. The only difference between this line in the implementation file and this line over here in our header file that we just created is that in the header file the line is a statement saying, hey, the button exists. And it's a statement because we know it ends with a semicolon. Down here in the implementation file, however, it's going to serve as a method. It's the same sort of thing as in Visual Basic of saying button1 _ click when you've double clicked the button. And then everything inside the curly braces is going to be the code that runs when you click the button. So if I press enter, now it's a similar sort of line to Visual Basic. We're going to put the name of the control and its property to display text on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side of the equal sign we're actually going to write the message we want to display. So I called my control label dot text property, what we want to display, equals, then Objective-C for a literal string starts with the @ symbol, and then speech marks to enclose that literal string. So hello world, close speech marks. And because this is a statement within the method, we're going to end that with a semicolon. Now press Ctrl R on your keyboard to run your program, and this will open up the iOS simulator. Here we have an example of an iPhone. There's our red background, our button, go on press me, okay, and then hello world appears. Notice the text of the button changed from black to white and the background changed to blue when I pressed down on the button. These are all things that you could have changed in the properties, but you get the general idea. Check out my blog at flexilearn.com to see a little bit more information about what those 3 lines of code that you've written in this tutorial actually do.